Well, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, wherever you are. Thanks for being here. It's me, Ari Dosset Rashid. I'm your anthropologist and sociologist. Hit the like button, share this live stream, subscribe to the channel, become a member of the channel, and don't forget, donate in the links below. Also, check my novels on Amazon. Thank you very much. First of all, let me know if you can hear me clearly. Quite important. If needed, I'll do something about the audio settings, but please let me know if you can hear me clearly. See, Maria's here. Hi, Maria. Okay, you can hear me clearly? Okay, that's good. By the way, just for you to know, it's morning for me here. I woke up early and I went into prayer and all that. So I decided, you know what? Let me do this quick live stream because this is a topic that's on my heart. And I feel that some of you need to hear this message. If that doesn't apply to you, it doesn't apply to you. But for those whom it does apply, keep listening, please. Now, look, tribal paranoia. What is it? Tribal paranoia is when big portions of the population are agitated in a fearful way towards outsiders. Why is it tribal? Because one thing you understand about fear, when human beings are afraid, they begin to cling to everything that's similar to them. Human beings have the tendency to cling to things that are similar to them, assuming that everything similar to them is safe. So when you have xenophobia, people are afraid of foreigners or afraid of outsiders. That fear is not based on any reality, as if insiders can't be dangerous to you. I mean, if there are street robbers in your own neighborhood, and then you have some, I don't know, some extremist from Syria living there, the extremist from Syria has his focus on Syria. So eventually, he wants to establish something in Syria in an extremist way. So you will likely not experience much danger from that guy. But the street robbers nearby, oh my God, they'll rob you. They're focused on you locally. So xenophobia is when people project all their insecurities and anxieties onto those who are not similar to them. And if this happens locally, and the majority of the population falls for it, it becomes tribal paranoia. Now, in the Western world, there is a lot of tribal paranoia going on. Now, most people in the West don't display this tribal paranoia openly. And it's not everyone in the Western world that's in tribal paranoia either. But a big portion of Western people are in tribal paranoia, which simply means psychologically they're in terror, existential terror. Now, how do people cope with this existential terror that they experience psychologically? Some of them become very blatant in their negative projections of other people. That's why you have those racist right-wing groups calling for mass deportation, closing the borders. You also have this Islamophobia that is growing in the West also. But all those things are one way that people express the existential fear they operate in. For example, several years ago, there were Pakistani gang members in the UK that molested and trafficked teenage British girls, particularly white British girls. Now, there were white nationalists in Britain that were upset about this, and they used this as a political tool to promote but would later become this thing called Brexit, and also to stop mass migration and all this stuff. Well, the whole idea about Britain won't leave the EU exists for a while, even before the vote in 2016. What I'm saying is that they politicized what happened. But question is, if around 2,000 white British girls were trafficked by Pakistani gangs, that means that you have 2,000 mothers, or maybe one mother had multiple children and multiple of her own children were trafficked. That can also be the case. But you have around 2,000 mothers who failed. You have around 2,000 fathers who failed, 2,000 uncles, 2,000 aunties, 2,000 grandparents. Because if white British people had functioning communities, those foreign men, well, at least the foreign in the sense that they're not to the same ethnicity, they wouldn't even have this leverage to traffic those girls. So instead of those white nationalists in Britain admitting their own community failures, they got terrified and objectified Muslims. Well, not every Pakistani is a Muslim, okay? Because Islam is a movement, okay? It's identified, it's codified as a religion, but an actual movement. It's a movement that honors the heritage of Muhammad. That's what Islam is. It's a movement. And it's a movement that centers around financial independence, community building, and economic relevance. So Islam itself is more realistic in how it functions as a movement because it's focused on the now and being relevant right now. So why this Islamophobia? Why this obsession with saying if all the Muslims left the West, it's all going to be a paradise for us? Look, I'm not advocating Islam here in this live stream. I'm using this as an example. Because not only Muslims that a lot of these far-right nationalists have a problem with. They have a problem with African migrants too. They have a problem with mixed relationships and mixed children and all that. I'm just using the Islamophobia as an example. Islam is not the reason why their local communities declined over time. It was the local communities that forfeited valuing the family, valuing children, valuing motherhood, valuing being a father and a husband. It were the local communities that prioritized financial profits over the well-being of their own people. So even if all Muslims, all blacks, and all mixed people would leave the West, that does not guarantee you'll have a so-called white utopia where everything functions well. Now, I know you also have people of color that are part of these xenophobic movements, absolutely. Let me use this as an example for you. Now, tribal paranoia does not only exist in the Western world. You have it also in Asia. You have tribal paranoia in Africa. Yes, you do. So it's not something unique to the West. Absolutely not. Just know that tribal paranoia has become so dominant in the West. So dominant that tribal paranoia has been normalized. Now, I explained one way tribal paranoia manifests. That's in far-right extremism or in racial violence. Is one way tribal paranoia manifests. Another way tribal paranoia manifests is in what I call hyper-liberalism, which people don't care at all about community values. It's all about being yourself and expressing yourself. Now, don't get me wrong. Human beings individually should have some level of autonomy. That's healthy. But just understand, there is no individual without a community. No human being can function independently on their own, apart from others. We are community creatures. We are not gods. We're not deities. So there are people in the West, instead of becoming far-right extremists or xenophobic racists, they become the opposite. They become hyper liberal cosmopolitan people, in the sense that, oh, we don't care about our identity as a group. We don't care about um, heritage, all of that. Just be yourself. Your life, you only live once. YOLO, you only live once. Uh, have your boundaries. Bind other people. Will whatever you will. Free will. As long as you don't will, as long as your will isn't too damaging to others. So you have hyper liberalism going on, and at the same time you have the opposite of it, which is this toxic xenophobia. And people think that the two are totally different things. No, the hyper liberalism, that is YOLO, you only live once, is all about you, the individual, without any regard for the community. That is the same thing as this um, collective hysteria you see at the right wing. It's the same thing, because it's the same tribal paranoia, but expressed in different ways. Now, what is the cure for tribal paranoia? It's easy. Establishing healthy, safe communities. Simple as that. But there's one thing that stands in the way of building healthy, stable communities. And let me tell you what it is. Escapism. But this has been the plague in the fall of mankind since the fall of Adam. Escapism. People want to escape, being left alone, unbothered. So all over the world, you have this problem of escapism. It's not unique to the West. All throughout history in the human species, you had this issue of escapism. Difference is, in the past, civilizations had a way to motivate its members to contribute instead of escaping. Now, all that motivation was dark because it was not rooted in Christ. It wasn't rooted in serving the Heavenly Father. Nevertheless, whether you go back to ancient Egypt or the Sumerians, or you go to ancient China, or even go to the ancient Greeks and Romans, they had ways to motivate their population to contribute. And by motivating your population to contribute, you automatically deter people from escaping. One way the Romans did this is by having holidays each year in which you granted people an outlet to lose it. And while everyone lost it during those days, everyone realized, hold on a minute, this goes a bit too far. And by people experiencing for a few days anarchy in a controlled way, people eventually realize, you know what, let's contribute with the structure. So ancient civilizations all had the problem of escapism. Just like people of today have the problem of escapism. It's not something human beings can rid themselves of. The only way escapism can be resolved is when people become born again and serve the Heavenly Father. Simple as that. Human beings by themselves cannot rescue themselves nor save themselves. We can only manage ourselves in the fallen state. But you're still in a fallen state. Now, in ancient times, civilizations understood that they were in a fallen state. And civilizations understood that they had to restrain themselves as a population. Modern day Western people think that they can they can outgrow their fallen states without having father. They think that they can fix themselves as a population. And that's where a lot of the tribal paranoia comes from. Because at least classical, or say ancient civilizations, they knew that there was a defect in the human species that had to be addressed, something they had to be on guard of. Now, ancient civilizations all had their flaws and their errors. They all had their defects. Nevertheless, they did the best they could to maintain a stable and sane population. Modern day Western people grew up with the delusion, yes, it's a delusion, that they are far more advanced than all their ancestors. Now, modern day people may be far more advanced when it comes to the use of technology. For example, instant communication. For example, I'm using an electronic device now to talk to you, and you may be living somewhere in the United States. 200 years ago, if I want to reach people in the United States, I either had to go on a sail ship and sail to North America. That would take about maybe 4 weeks, roughly a month. And once I arrive there, I have to go in person to the places I want to speak to. Or I could publish a newspaper, but even that newspaper had to be transported on ships and then transported through carriages on land. So if this was the year 1824, and I would write down a speech here in the Netherlands, you guys would have read about it roughly 2 months later. And there was no photography established back then, so you would only see maybe a drawn portrait of mine or a painting of mine. But now, 200 years later, I can just sit in my living room with a camera on, and I can use the electric technology, and you guys can see me moving, and I communicate with you. So when it comes to instant communication, we are far ahead than our ancestors, absolutely. Also, when it comes to, for example, mass consumption, we have refrigerators, work with electricity. We can store food for a long time. We have washing machines. I mean, though to electric technology, we have a lot of comforts today that our ancestors could only dream of. We can play back music. We have security cameras. So if something bad happens and there's a camera, we can play back the camera and see what happens. They didn't have this 200 years ago and before. So yes, when it comes to technology, we have it easier than our ancestors, absolutely. But just because we, technology-wise, are more advanced than our ancestors, that does not mean that we, in general, are more advanced than our ancestors. Let me say this. When it comes to our overall functioning as a collective, a lot of people in the West are worse off than their ancestors. A lot of people today, they lack communication skills because, well, they can easily escape. Let me explain. Let's say you want to listen to music. If this was somewhere in the early 1800s or early 1700s or before, you would have to go to a church or to a marketplace where the musicians were playing. So you had to be there in person. So you had to have a good standing in the community, a good reputation, or else people wouldn't want you there. You would miss out on the music. But over time, due to the development of technology in the late 19th century and also in the 20th century, now, if you want to listen to music, you can just lay down, pick up your mobile phone, and tens of thousands of songs are available to you. And you can replay songs, put your own playlist together. And question to you, does listening to music today require community involvement? Let me know in the live chat. Does listening to music today in 2024, does it require community involvement on your part? Let me know in the live chat. By the way, if you're driving a car now or you're in traffic, pay attention to the road, please. No traffic accidents on my watch. Thank you very much. Question to you all. Does listening to music now in 2024 require community involvement? No, it does not. Because you can just go to YouTube or Spotify or Apple Music, whatever, and look at this. You can just play a lot of music. So someone can be a loner, neglecting themselves and other people, and still listening to nice songs. 200 years ago, it was unthinkable. For example, cooking. Today, you can just go to an app and order food, whether it's Uber Eats or some local variant that you have, or if you're into McDonald's, McDelivery, whatever it is, you have an app. You can select the food you want, click order, pay with your debit card, whatever, or with delayed payments through PayPal, and within an hour, a delivery is in front of you. A stranger delivers your food to you. Go a few decades back, not so long ago, in the time of your grandparents, this was not the case. Now, I'm not saying that in time your grandparents couldn't order food by the telephone. You could, but you couldn't scroll and check what type of food it was. So, question, does ordering food on an app require community involvement on your part? What do you think? Does ordering food on an app require community involvement from you? Let me know in the live chat. What do you think? Maria said yes. What does the rest say? Does ordering food on an app require community involvement? Well, the correct answer is no. Because you don't have a relationship with the chef, nor with the deliverer. Those are just strangers. And you likely never see those people again. You're not required to have a good standing with those people. Only thing you do is go on the app, type in what you want, pay for it digitally, and you get your food, and then it's over. In the past, you'd have to be there at the restaurant, or at the eatery, or the guest house, whatever it was, or the church. And you either had to participate in the cooking, or you just had to know the people, which were known folks. You would go there, get your food, and because refrigerators were not the norm yet, you had to consume them immediately. So, in short, people today can easily dodge and avoid community involvement far more than our ancestors did. If you were a loner in ancient Egypt, you likely would have become homeless and you would have died. If you were a loner in ancient Rome, you had a problem. Only if you were rich could you afford to be a loner. Even then, being a loner was quite difficult being rich. So, in short, throughout human history, only rich people got away with being antisocial. Because they were the only ones who could afford it financially. But even then, they couldn't fully be antisocial. Today, even people on welfare can afford to be antisocial. to some extent. As a matter of fact, it's quite easy to become antisocial and disengaged today. And to some extent, even promoted with this hyper individualism on social media. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with listening to music on your mobile phone. There's nothing wrong with being able to order food online. There's nothing wrong with social media itself. You can share information with multitudes of people. However, all this technology is being misused and abused now by the public to escape. Let's look at TikTok, for example. If people use TikTok primarily to educate one another and motivate one another for the better, it would be great. Unfortunately, TikTok is also used to escape and to not face things in life. There are people scrolling for hours on TikTok, also on other social media like Instagram and all that. Again, we have people using social media to reach out to others and to educate and to inform people. You even have educators using social media to educate on topics. So it's not the social media itself that's the problem, it's what people do with it. And what people do with it shows what people are all about. So understand this. The problem with, I'm talking about the Western world now. I'm not saying what I'm saying only applies to the Western world, but now focus on the Western world. The problem with the Western world is that we are so used to the convenience of modern day technology that we think that being antisocial or neglectful is perfectly fine. Of course, a lot of people wouldn't say it like that, like I just said it bluntly in the open. But that's what a lot of people think. A lot of people think that being neglectful and antisocial is perfectly fine. And it's not. We are and always will be community creatures. So we have community requirements that need to be met for us to be sane and stable individuals. You don't get sane and stable individuals when folks are neglecting one another and avoiding one another. You get sane and healthy individuals when we operate according to the design of the Heavenly Father, which is community. For there to be community, people must be realistic about what they are and what they aren't. Okay, let me give an example of ancient Rome to you. When you hear the word Rome, you might think about the Roman Empire, on this world empire that had territories in Europe, Northern Africa, what do they call West Asia or the Middle East. You may think about gladiators or about those Roman legions, or you may even think about, the Bible. The New Testament was written during Roman rule. You may think about the crucifixion, all of that, but look, Rome did not begin as a dominant empire. Rome began as a settlement village. Rome, or in the actual language Roma, was a Greek settlement village at the Tiber River in Italy. Yet Greeks that settled in Italian peninsula, some who settled a little bit north, and somewhere in the middle at the Tiber of the Italian peninsula around the Tiber River, you had Greek merchants that settled for trade, and eventually they stayed there. So you had a Greek village that became a small Greek town. So Roma began as a Greek colony. However, it was abandoned quickly. That's where you get the myth of Romulus and Remus from. The twin that was raised by a she-wolf, in which one brother killed the other for the establishment of Rome. That myth of the establishment of Rome is actually showing you that Rome was a Greek settlement that was abandoned by the Greeks. So the Greeks were left there. They were on their own, and you had a lot of the neighboring tribes that exploited them. Eventually, you had migrants who were often outcasts from those other communities, from the Etruscans, Etrurians, and those other tribes that actually moved towards Roma, and they became part of the Roman community. So Rome began as an abundant Greek settlement that became a refuge for outcasts from other Italic tribes. And those people formed a mixed community. And later, though to trade, because that's the only thing Rome had in the beginning, when it was still governed by kings, though to trade, you also had people from Northern Africa. And by the way, Northern Africa was not Arab at the time. Today, when we go to Northern Africa, it's meant an Arab population, a light-skinned Arab population. Back in the ancient times, it was not a light-skinned Arab population. Northern Africa was primarily dark-skinned back then. So you had dark-skinned people from Africa also settling in Rome. You also had Judeans, not Jews, because Jew refers to someone false religion. Judean is ethnicity. You had Judeans that settled there also. So Rome was a mixed community with people from mixed ancestry. But you had what you can call a Greek elite, Greek rich folks that run it. That's where you get the senators from. The senatorial class of Rome were rich Greek people that settled throughout Italy. They were wealthy farmers who also had a leverage in shipping. And as you know, even today, most trade is done by sea. So those wealthy farmers who had a leverage in shipping, of course, because they leveraged in shipping and because they were wealthy farmers with big lots of land, they were the richest folks around in Italy back then. And they became the ones that established private schools where their children would go to. And from those private schools, they would end up in the government of Rome. So, how did this work? You had the mixed population of the city of Rome. You had the rich Greeks that run it. And they had their own private schools to educate one another. Eventually, Rome began to expand. And it governed almost all of the Italian peninsula. Now, by this time, Rome was not run by kings anymore, it was a republic. So now, there had to be a social contract. There had to be a collective agreement for this to work. Because remember, Rome was not some ethnicity. There was no such thing as a Roman ethnicity. You had rich Greeks that run this city-state of a mixed population. And people are fine with this. So those rich Greek families, some of them intermarried with the local Italic tribes also, they had to convince the population in the Italian peninsula that that city-state over there, Rome, was worth it. So those senatorial families had to invest their wealth and their finances in the population. Or to say it differently, they had to make it through to the population. For the population, it would be a bit humiliating if it were only the senatorial families that did all the investment. So to make sure the population felt included, they enforced taxation. So you pay taxes, and by paying taxes, you now obtained the right to raise your voice and to give an opinion. It was still the senatorial families that ran Rome, the government of Rome. It was not the majority of the population. And also you have a big portion of the population that were slaves, imported from the side of Italy. As a matter of fact, you had a lot of slaves. So many slaves that slaves were not even allowed to recognize one another to prevent slave revolts. Slaves were part of the community back then. It wasn't based on racial or ethnic lines. The slaves were just grown folks without financial rights. But their financial rights were maintained by their slave owners, who on their behalf communicated with the government. So there was a way to limit the rivalry and competition on the Italian peninsula. But as you know, Rome began to grow beyond the Italian peninsula. In northern Africa, what they call Spain, eventually they conquered many of the Greek homelands. So eventually, Roma had to divest from its Greek origins. Even though Greek remained the spoken language in the public, they now began to enforce the use of Latin more and more. Why do they have to divest more from the Greek origins? Even though even they adopted much of Greek, much elements from Greek culture itself, is because Greek culture back then was hard into your face, very rough. And this Greek harsh interface Greek culture kind of conflicted with the culture of the Celts back then, and some of the Germanic tribes, also some of the Maori tribes in North Africa. So Rome, the city of Rome, realized, you know what? We run the Italian peninsula, but now that we are spreading over the Mediterranean, all these conquered peoples, we need to include them. So we also need to have rich families from those areas that comply with how things are run. So Rome had to establish values that people identified with. Julius Caesar, or pronounced in English Julius Caesar, he expanded the Roman Republic, but he got so popular and so powerful that eventually the senatorial families turned on him, and when he returned to Rome, they murdered him in the Senate. Now, a relative or someone related to Julius Caesar, Augustus, became the next Caesar, but he became emperor. He abolished the republican rule and established a monarchy, but in a more different, distant way. But by now, when Rome became an empire, there were established Roman values. So whether you were someone from Lusitania, what they call Portugal, whether you're from Lusitania, or you were from the Bosporic kingdom, which today we call Crimea, occupied by Russia, or whether you were from Gaul, today we call France, or whether you were actually someone from the city of Rome itself, being Roman had to do with values. People had to value the same things for them to remain connected socially. And that's how, despite the distance and the slow communication and slow traffic, the Roman Empire functioned as the world empire that governed the world. So Rome was not based on skin color or on ethnic backgrounds, even though the Greek gods were the norm, even though you had a Greek-speaking elite over there that run things at the top. It was not based on ethnicity or tribal alliances. It had values that made it work. Now, those values still did not take away the dysfunction of the public. So Rome was pagan. So they had pagan coping mechanisms. When the gospel came, the pagan basis of the Roman Empire was weakened. And it almost led to the collapse of the Roman Empire itself. And that's how, with the Council of Nicaea, which was in 325, that's when the Catholic Church was fully established. And with the establishment of the Catholic Church in 325 AD, that's where Western civilization began. What happened was that instead of abolishing the Greco-Roman civilization, they combined it with the gospel. Now, as long as the people were community-oriented, things could still function, even though it was unstable. So Western civilization, which began with the Council of Nicaea, or Nicaea, in 325, it was unstable from the start. So even the design of Western civilization is a failure in itself, because you have paganism, you have Greco-Roman paganism based on ritual murder, and you have the gospel based on love for your neighbor and human rights, them being combined together, a toxic mixture. But still, the Catholic Church was able to preserve communities and communities functioned. So eventually, a Catholic culture developed worldwide. Before, you had a Roman, you had a world culture based on Greek mythology, and it was Romanized, so you had the Greco-Roman world culture before. Now it turned to a Catholic culture, which was actually a mixture. Now, again, because the Western civilization is a toxic mixture, it didn't work that well. And it will never work well. But then, you had the Germanic tribes who lived outside of the Roman Empire, who were more tribal oriented. When they began to invade portions of Rome, which contributed to the collapse of the western part of the Roman Empire. So the western part of the Roman Empire, it changed into Catholic kingdoms, run by those invading Germanics from the north. But those Germanics from the north, which mostly worshipped Odin, Odinism was their thing. They also wanted to preserve some of their tribal traditions, if you can say it like that. So that was mixed in also with the Catholic Church. So eventually, the Germanic tribes became dominant in what was left of Roman civilization. But the thing is, the tribalism of the Germanics also created conflicts in the places they conquered. So Western civilization became dominated by what we call the West, or Germanic tribes that became dominant in the West of Europe. So Western civilization actually began in the East. It began in the East, but eventually was, I would say, formalized in Western Europe by Germanic tribes. And a lot of Germanic tribes, they adopted a form of Christianity, which is as a mosque, but they never forfeited their tribalism rooted in Odinism. Now, the Mediterranean people, they Christianized most of their pagan practices into the Catholic Church, and they identified more with the Christian side of things than with the pagan side of stuff, while the Germanics used Christianity as a front. Eventually, many other Germanic tribes later on revolt against the Catholic Church. I made a whole live stream explaining why this happened, so watch that one. And then you had Protestantism. And in Protestantism, this whole tribal conflict that was known to the Germanic ancestors came back. That's why Germanic Europeans have so many Christian denominations. They have so many: Baptist, Lutheran, Reformed, Calvinist, Anabaptist. I mean, it's like every 20 years there's a new denomination coming up. So what you need to understand is that Germanic Europeans, and by the way, British people today are Celto-Germanic because they are a mixture of the Anglo-Saxons and the Celts who were living there. So Germanic Europeans, including the British people, they never really had a Christian heritage to begin with. What they had was a Christian front that covered up the paganism. Were there true believers amongst them throughout history? Absolutely. Were there Christian communities here and there amongst Germanic Europeans? Yes, there were. But to act like all of Germanic Europeans develop a Christian heritage, that's not the case. Now, there is a Christian heritage developed in Southern Europe. And later, through Spanish and Portuguese colonialism, they extended this to the Americas. But Germanic Europeans never had a Christian heritage. It was a Christian mask to filter and hide the paganism. And eventually, the paganism couldn't be hidden anymore. It first went to Protestantism under the guise of revolting against the idolatry in the Catholic Church. They wanted to protest. But after they separated from the Catholic Church, by the way, I'm in no way saying that I approve of the idolatry in the Catholic Church. First of all, we shouldn't even be focused on the church system. We should be believers one another. There's a difference between the Vatican and Catholics as a population. There's a difference between the two. The Vatican is a political religious system, and the Catholics is a population. Okay, which involves people from many ethnicities and ethnic backgrounds. But when the Germanic Europeans revolt against the authority of the Catholic Church, of the Vatican, they claimed it was to get close to the Heavenly Father. And there were Germanic Europeans who really want to get close to the Heavenly Father, but the majority of the Protestant Reformation was based on politics. The Germanic Europeans, a big portion of them, they wanted to have their own Christian mosque separate from the Vatican. And over time, because of this void culturally, because of all the tribalism that came back to the forefront, yet a void, the strong sense of community deteriorated. So you had more cult formations. And that's why all these denominations that came up. And to compensate for this, through the Dutch Empire, capitalism was established, in which the full focus went to financial profit away from community obligations. In ancient times, all the way to what we call the Dark Ages, go all the way to the colonial era, doing business was done on behalf of the community. As a businessman or businesswoman, you conducted business to benefit your community, and in benefiting your community, you were enriched. So the primary purpose of doing business was not to get money or to get rich. It was to benefit your community, and in the process of benefiting your community, you got financial leverage. And the population you belong to assisted you as a businessman or businesswoman. Why? Because they were winning. Because if you were a greedy individual conducting business to exploit others, you'll be called out, you will not be trusted, and you'll be cancelled and shut down. The Dutch Empire, however, normalized sociopathic exploitation. So now doing business is all about making money at the expense of other people. And only to prevent other people from revolting, you give them a quote-unquote fair pay. So what we call doing business today is totally different than how most of our ancestors conducted business in the past, in the far past. So understand this. Western civilization, with its capitalism, came forth out of it. It is a compensation for the lack of strong communities. Now, I'm not saying that we should all become Catholic. I'm not promoting it. What I'm saying is that as believers, we need to admit that the Western world polluted us into thinking that it's all about you, the individual, being at ease and you earning your place in heaven after you die. While it should be about glorifying the Heavenly Father, both as an individual and as communities. We're called the body of Christ for a reason. In a human body, each organ is part of the body. The hand cannot say to the feet, I don't belong to you. Neither can the stomach say to the liver, hey, I want to do with you, stay over there. The body is one whole, and each organ has different functions. So our bodies should tell us that as human beings, just like our organs need one another to function, we as a people need communities to function. Oh, this is clear to you. Now, the tribal paranoia you see in the Western world is the result of big portion of Western people, whether they are Europeans or so-called minorities that migrate to the Western world, or they were displaced there through slavery in the past, whatever, doesn't matter. A lot of Westerners, the reason why this tribal paranoia is growing is because we've become so focused on financial profit at the expense of community well-being. So you see a lot of cults rising up. Now you understand why so many cults are rising up in the Western world. And a lot of these cults don't even make sense in what they're teaching. But this is what I want you to understand. It doesn't have to make sense what those cults are teaching. The fact is, because community well-being is at the lowest in the West now, and because there's such an obsession with financial profits, people now in general alienated, people are not motivated to contribute. And that's also the reason why the birth rate is so low in the Western world. People aren't willing to sexually contribute because they're not motivated to. Because of all of this, loneliness is increasing. And the fact that a lot of people are praising this antisocial individualism, this also doesn't work out well. That's how you develop all these right-wing extremism, racial hatred, and all of that. So, what's the cure for this? We need to admit that we can't fix ourselves as a human species. We have to admit that we need to have a father to govern us. We need to admit that we need one another to remain healthy and sane in the long run. We need to forfeit this toxic individualism that has been perceived as a type of, development, type of improvement. Why do you think you have this classification of the Dark Ages and the Renaissance, and then the modern world. You call the Dark Ages the Dark Age is to give them illusion as if Western people improved since then. Now, technology-wise, things improved for the whole world, but when it comes to social engagement, things didn't actually improve. As a matter of fact, things got worse. So look, as believers, we need to understand that community building should be on all our minds. And there's one advice I want to give to you all, as an anthropologist and sociologist. I'm going to give you sociological advice now. Are you all ready? Get your pen and paper and write this down if necessary, because it's something quite important that all believers need to understand. When it comes to financial projects, whether it's starting on business or building an institution like a school, when it comes to financial projects, it will always have a political dimension. I'm not saying that a financial project automatically is political. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that it will always have a political impact. Let me give an example. When a lot of Muslim migrants came to the West on invitation to do labor, and later brought over their families, eventually they opened mosques, they established Islamic schools, they have Islamic supermarkets and that. Those were all financial projects to make sure that they had their own economy as Muslims to live in. However, because they had their own economy eventually as migrants, the host country has less to say towards them. Because let's say you were from a Muslim background and you couldn't get a job because of racism or discrimination, whatever. Normally, you either had to leave or you had to adapt to what to what the locals wanted. But now, because it was an Islamic economy functioning amongst the Islamic migrants, you could always say, you know what, I can find a job over there. So that means now that the host country and its institutions has less of a grip over you. Now, is this a problem? No. If the host country had functioning communities and institutions, it wouldn't be a problem. What happens now is that because in the West, people are so obsessed with financial profit and individual relief, communities declined. There's less sexual motivation, so there's less contribution, especially less sexual contribution. That's why you have low birth rate. Now, the host country or the host population is weakening itself, while in this case, Islamic migrants are increasing and booming. So now, the Islamic migrants, which came as which came as workers only, now they're pillars of Western countries. Now they have something to say, and you can't say no to them. Because if you say no to them, you have problems with your finance in your country. So when Muslims in the West had their financial projects, eventually it had a political impact. Okay, let's look at, for example, the Chinese diaspora. The Chinese diaspora, to maintain their Chinese culture and heritage overseas, they established Chinatowns. And those Chinatowns were also a place where they could not only meet one another, but also where they could help each other out financially. So those Chinatowns were not by design political projects. They were financial projects, but they eventually became political because of the political impact it had. I hope you follow me over here. So understand this: when we as believers have our financial projects. Understand, even though it's not our goal to become political, we will have a political impact eventually. And there will be retaliation against that political impact. Do you follow what I'm saying here? Let me know in the live chat. Do you understand what what I just said about financial projects? Let me know in the live chat. Do you understand what I just said? Let me know. Do you understand that part of financial projects turning political, or at least having political impact? Is that clear to you? Let me know in the live chat. Mm-hmm. Just like walking through says. Walking through says the problem of cheat is control and jealousy by and from wool sheep's clothing that are in reality are trying to hinder Christian prosperity. Absolutely. And that's why I'm teaching this about financial projects. When you do a financial project, you have to use sociological insights. If you need to hire sociologists, or if you need to go to sociology seminars or sociology webinars, or even a sociologist giving some of the courses on YouTube for free. If you need to get sociological insight, please get it. Because as a sociologist, I can tell you, when you do a financial project, you have to do it in such a way that whatever you are establishing cannot be used against you. Because remember, a financial project, the goal is you want something to be established, you're enforcing something. Okay, for example, let's say you want to renovate the house you live in by breaking down some walls and changing the interior. If you're renting the house, the real estate owner can say, hey, hold on a minute, you can't do that. You're only renting over here. But if it's the house you built yourself or you bought, no, you can't do that. If you want to, let's say, if you want to invite a lot of people to have a party and you want to do it in public at a public park, you can have others saying, we don't want this over here, and then authorities can intervene. But if you have your own plot of land where you have your big party, okay, how are people going to tell you to stop it? So what I'm saying is, a financial project simply means you want to enforce an outcome that people cannot say no to. That's why you want financial independence. That's why you want to be economically relevant. You can enforce something. And the public will also pick up you enforcing something. So if you're enforcing something, make sure you do it in such a way that nobody can use it against you. Now, let me give an example. If you have, now think about this. If you have, let's say a Muslim traveling from Indonesia, because Indonesia is the biggest Muslim country on earth, okay? I'm using Muslim as an example now, okay? Let's say you have a Muslim from Indonesia and he moves to, let's say, let's think about the country, Ireland, for example. Let's say he starts a supermarket over there, but he brings over all these Indonesians to work in the supermarket. You can say, well, it's an Indonesian supermarket, so if you have Indonesian people working it, it's a match. Yes, it's a match. But guess what? You have more foreigners now in Ireland having jobs, but you have local Irish people without a job. How do you think the local Irish people are going to feel with more migrants, strangers coming into their homeland? and they have jobs, but they themselves, who grew up there for generations, have problems paying rent. Do you think this is going to work out well? No. Sociologically, this will lead to a conflict. So the Indonesian that goes to Ireland and starts an Indonesian supermarket, he can have Indonesians working for him, but it would be best if he at least has 10% of his staff being local Irish people. Because then the local Irish people can see their own people working there having a financial benefit. And because of that, people feel included, and people will be more willing to tolerate the Indonesian supermarket being there. Because think about it. If there's an Indonesian supermarket over there, who will the customers be likely? Our local Irish people. Likely other Indonesian people or Malay people may go there, but primarily it will be the local Irish that have to go there. And why would the local Irish people spend their cash on an establishment where they, as a people, have no benefit from? Why would they do that? So by hiring some of the local Irish people, you'll get more Irish customers there, and that's what you want when you establish that supermarket in Ireland. And now the Indonesian supermarket will be a success because the one that started the supermarket, he used sociological understanding. Now, believers overall should use sociological understanding. There are believers who are sociologists. I'm not the only one. There are more believers out there who are sociologists. So believers should use sociological understanding when it comes to financial projects. What happens now, unfortunately, is that many believers do not incorporate sociological understanding in their financial projects. And because of that, what they do tends to backfire. People say, man, this is a religious thing. I'm not religious. Who say this is not that inclusive? Who will say, oh, you want us to bring it back to the dark age, whatever, or you want to control us with the Bible, all of that. Truth being told, people are not complaining about Muslims controlling them with the Quran. But you have a lot of Islamic businesses all over the place. Islamic schools, Islamic supermarkets. You have some Sharia courts in the West now, here and there. Why is that? Because they incorporate sociological understanding. And because they incorporate sociological understanding, they're able to establish what they're doing in such a way that no excuse can be used to shut them down. We as believers need to incorporate practical understanding in what we do. For example, as a believer, you don't go to Thailand, a Buddhist nation, and suddenly put crosses everywhere. That's going to lead to antagonistic sentiments in the public towards you. What you can do is go there, start a guest house, hotel, or some financial project. And once the financial project is working, now the revenue you use to sponsor and assist local believers that are in Thailand. And that's how now believers in Thailand become economically relevant and they have a say now in what happens over there. But if believers go to Thailand just with crosses everywhere in an aggressive way, it will hinder the relevancy of believers over there. Because believers will be perceived as intruders, colonizers, you name it. So do you understand what I just explained about sociological understanding in our financial projects? Let me know in the live chat. Let me know, please. And I want you to understand the following too. Art is different from financial projects. Write this down in the live chat. Art is different from financial projects. All of you, write this down in the live chat. It's very important. You need to remember this. Art is different from financial projects. Write this down in the live chat. Art is different from financial projects. Write it down. Art is different than financial projects. And I'm going to explain this to you right now. I'm giving you this understanding for free, so I expect you to appreciate my time and effort in teaching you this, and you will use it in daily life and glorify God, my Father. Okay? Normally, you have to pay thousands of dollars to get private courses to get such understanding, or you have to pay tens of thousands of dollars to get a degree to get this. By the way, my sociology degree cost me 12,000 euros, which I paid over time. My sociology masters at Rotterdam University Rotterdam cost me around 12,000 euros. Me, because I want to benefit believers worldwide, I'm using that investment to teach all of you. So I would appreciate you to take this knowledge and use it to glorify God, my Father. Look, why is art different from financial projects? Art is a way to express and bond with other people. That's art. So art has a different effect than a financial project. Let me give you an example. Let's say you have this rapper from Ghana. I'm giving an example. Let's say you have a rapper from Ghana. And this rapper, he makes video clips. The songs he's writing and the video clips he's making are all art. That's all this art. If you turn on the radio and you go at the radio frequency and you hear this Ghanaian rapper, let's say you're not into rap music, you just tune to another radio channel. Or if you're on YouTube and you suggested this video clip of this Ghanaian rapper, you go and click away. So art is a way to express feelings, thoughts, and to just, be expressive. So this Ghanaian rapper, for example, let's say he makes a video clip and you have all these, I would say, Indian college students partying. So let's say this Ghanaian rapper, he makes a few video clips. In one video clip, you have all these Indian women from India dancing in a provoking way. Then he has another clip where you have all these European women, European college women dancing in provoking ways, all that. So he's an artist. So people say, man, this is just a rapper. He's into this gangster lives, gangster culture, all that. People can say he's just an artist. You're not forced to look at these videos nor to listen to his songs. You're not. It's art. It will perceive different way. Now, people may be annoyed at his music style. They may be a bit annoyed by his graphic video clips, but hey, it's art. Okay? Art can be graphic. But let's say now, this Ghanaian rapper now starts his own church, for example. I'm giving an example. He starts his own church. But you only see European women serving in that church and attending that church. That's going to be a total different impact because that church is a financial project, however you want to look at it. If he's a Ghanaian man starting his own church, there should be Ghanaian believers involved in it. If he starts a church and you only see European females act in it, or let's say it's not a church. Let's say it starts its own business, okay? Its own law firm, whatever. Let's say this Ghanaian rapper now has its own law firm. But primarily you see European women working there. You barely see men, let alone men from his own homeland. What do you think people are going to think about it? They may think, is this law firm or this church a front for sex trafficking, or is he trying to pimp out all these women? What the heck is he doing? Now the thing is, the same guy, when he was a rapper, making all these graphic video clips and saying all these graphic lyrics, people thought, my God, it's just a rapper. Why? Because this was just art. Art is a way for people to bond, whether in the positive or the negative. But art is not decision making. No, I'm not saying that when you make art, I'm not saying it's not a decision to make art. Of course, when you do art, it's a decision for you to do art. You make a decision to be part in art. But art itself is not a decision making factor. Financial projects are. A financial project, as I mentioned before, is you implementing and enforcing an outcome on the earth. You want to put something on the earth that people can't say no to. So you're enforcing something. So if this Ghanaian rapper is making graphic music videos with Indian women, Chinese women, European women, its own Ghanaian women, African women, people don't care. It's just a rapper with some graphic video clips. You have a lot of them. But those graphic video clips and all those graphic songs are things people can look away from. But if that same guy has a law firm or he has a church or some exponential project, you're going to look away from it. It's going to affect us whether they like it or not. So if he starts, let's say this Ghanaian man starts a law firm in, let's say, Sweden. And if a lot of college women who graduated start to work for his law firm, it can be that he's just offering those grad students an opportunity to start a career. And if a lot of women who graduate in law in Sweden, so a lot of them decide, hey, you have this foreigner, this Ghanaian guy with a law firm, let's try it over there. He's easy, he lets us start. So his intention may be good, but the perception of it is not going to be good. Because people are going to say, well, Donovan, why are all these Swedish women going to this Ghanaian, this foreigner, to start a career? Are there no Swedish law firms that can help them out start a career? Why are they all going over there? So this Ghanaian man having a law firm in Sweden, giving career opportunities to all these Swedish women, it will not be perceived, it will be perceived as a failure of the local Swedes to provide career opportunities for their own women. That's how it's going to be perceived as. And to some extent, it is going to be weird that a lot of these Swedish women who graduate in law have to go to a foreign law firm in order for them to have a career. So if you have a lot of Swedish women going to this law firm, this Ghanaian guy now gains leverage over the Swedish population. So this guy also gains a leverage over families, because a lot of those Swedish women will marry likely local Swedish men or whatever, have families, and guess what? That guy now has power over there, over those people. And that power will be perceived eventually as intimidating. But hey, if it was just this guy being a rapper with graphic music videos with a lot of Swedish girls dancing in it, people say, man, leave this guy alone. He's just thirsty sexually, he's just desperate. People say, whatever, we can just turn the music off, whatever. Now, what I just gave was a parable, an example. Is this example clear to you? Let me know in the live chat. Is that example clear to you? Let me know. Japan colonized Korea for 35 years. And the Japanese did not behave that well towards the Korean population. So for a Japanese company to operate in Korea, they have to be cautious how they operate. Because it can quickly be perceived as a repetition of the past. Even though that may not be the case, but it can be perceived that way. If Europeans go to Africa to do business, they have to watch out how they do business. Because it may be perceived as neo-colonialism or neo-racism, whatever. No, I'm not saying that you have to restrict yourself to all these worldly perceptions, okay? No. You have autonomy as a believer grounded by Heavenly Father, but just know you still need to consider how you do things in the right now. When it comes to art, you can almost get away with anything in art. Well, almost anything. In art, you can be playful. You can be, because in art, people don't really care much about ethnicity and all that other thing. No, it's art. You know what I mean? Whether it's photography, whether it's painting, whether it's architecture. Yes, there are different styles of photography and architecture. There are conventions, but in general, hey, you can participate in art. When it comes to financial establishments or financial projects are you putting an agenda on the earth. You're telling people this is going to happen and you have to deal with it. So if you do that, you can understand that it's forceful. Financial projects are forceful. Have you look at it. So if you're doing a financial project, going to prayer and fasting, make sure you obtain historical knowledge of the place where you're going to function. Make sure you also obtain sociological insight so that when you do your financial project, it's done in such a way that when opposition arrives, opposition cannot succeed. When it comes to art, you can almost do anything. You know what I mean? When it comes to financial projects, you have to be more cautious. Again, art is different from financial projects. Now, what if you are making money through your art? Let's say you are a painter and you earn good money with painting. Is that not a financial project? It's still art. It's just that the art brings revenue. Now, if you take the money you're making off that art and now you start financial projects, now that's different. The art was just the vehicle to bring in the finances to financial projects. So even in that case, the art was just a tool that led to your financial projects. But the art itself is not a financial project. So a lot of people think, oh, start your own business. As if starting your own business automatically means magically everything's going to turn out well financially for you. Are you going to be financially prosperous? No. You can start a quality business and still fail because you don't implement practical sociological knowledge. Why do you think advertisers spend millions in getting advice, in getting the right angle, and getting the right format? Those big corporations out there spend millions on advertisements. They spend millions on marketing. They spend millions on perception management of their products and their brands. Because they know if they act a bit off with their financial project, it can be over for them. It's not that when it comes to financial projects, you're under restrictions. No. It's just that the world will attempt to restrict you. So to be ahead of that, you need to make sure your financial project is done in such a way that accusations are left at. Is this all clear to you? Let me know in the live chat. Art can be dismissed when people say, I don't like this painting, I don't like this style of music. Now, the music is still there, the art is still there, but you can't dismiss it. But the moment it goes beyond art and turns into a financial project, now it will have a political impact. So now people may have a problem with it if the impact goes against their what they perceive as their interests. Now, you cannot be inclusive to everyone when it comes to financial projects, but you can be sensitive towards everyone. Sensitive does not mean you automatically give aim to whatever people want. You can be sensitive towards other people by watching the words you're using for your advertisement or for your business name or whatever, but it doesn't mean you automatically give aim to their restrictions. So we as believers, we need to have our financial projects in place to ensure our financial independence. And at the same time, we need to make sure that our financial projects are done with such excellency that no retaliation can work against it. That is the way forward. We can't keep complaining about the beast system, the Illuminati, about the wolf sheep's clothing, all of that. Yes, the wolf sheep's clothing are there. But the wolves in sheep's clothing, they have more practical understanding how to get things done than many believers do. Because so many believers are operating superstition. We as believers, we need to all learn superstition and learn to operate in practical understanding. Too many believers have superstition. And we need to purge ourselves from superstition, gain real spiritual understanding, and then use it in the here and now in a practical way. That's what we need to do. Indeed, art is there for financial projects. Now, art can be a tool to finance a financial project, indeed, but it doesn't mean it is a financial project. And as an anthropologist, I can tell you, people will judge you differently when it comes to your art than when it comes to your financial projects. People will judge me differently when they check my based on my novels than they would do when it comes to my YouTube channel. Because they can see the YouTube channel is actual teachings that shape people, and the book, the novel is writing just artistic expression. Same if you're a musician, but you're also a real estate investor, you'll be judged differently based on your real estate investment than are judged based on the music you're making. Art is expression. You can be playful with it. You can almost do anything over there. But when it comes to financial projects, people will check how it's going to affect us. What is he doing? So use this understanding for your benefit, please. Anyway, are there any questions about this topic? Please let me know in the live chat, please. Are there any questions about this topic? Please let me know. I'll wait for 1 more minute. If I don't get any questions, I'll close down the live stream. And it's been 1.5 hours. I didn't even realize I was that long over here. Any questions? I'll wait for another half minute. Just understand, we won't get ahead as believers by blaming the devil. Even if the devil is to blame for many of the hardships we go through and for the hate we go through. Just blame the devil is not going to solve anything. We need to overcome the devil, cast the devil out, and do the will of the Heavenly Father. That also implies we need to That we need to, how do I say? We need to show ourselves approved. That's we need to examine ourselves, and we need to actually do our due diligence. Where we lack understanding, we get that understanding from. And this thing, if a pagan lacks knowledge of marketing, they will hire a marketeer to do their part for them. If a pagan needs to do business with someone from Latin America, they will hire a Latin Americanist or a Spanish interpreter to assist them, or they will take Spanish courses themselves. The pagan knows they need to invest their time and effort in improving and expanding. Believers should do the same. Well, that's it for now. Thank you all for being here. Keep on with Christ. Again, hit the like button, share this live stream, subscribe to the channel, become a member of the channel. Don't forget, donate in links below. Check my notes on Amazon, and I'll see you next time. Shalom. God is good.